Welcome to the Forward Show, where we talk about sailing, gardening, and other forgotten gentleman pastimes, or in other words, anything and everything that we want to talk about. Today we're going to be talking about Avengers Endgame, and we have two guests on the show. I'm Alex Boss, and this is
Josh Anderson.
And this is
Stephen Detlefs.
These are local Marvel experts, you would say. I think we're all excited for Avengers Endgame, so we just kind of want to talk about what we know, talk about predictions, and just whatever you think of. So really my first question that I want to talk about is what's going to seem like a huge part of the movie, and that's the quantum realm. So I guess something I want to ask you guys is how will the quantum realm play its role? Will it be such a large role, or do you guys think it's something that's just going to kind of not be as involved in the movie?
I think the quantum realm is going to play a big part in the fact that I believe the quantum realm is the key to time travel for them. I think time travel is going to play a huge part of this movie in the sense that they're going to have to go back and maybe gather their own set of Infinity Stones, or maybe for every Infinity Stone that they get, Thanos loses one, it affects the current timeline. And I think that's the big key, is by them going to the quantum realm. The uniforms that the white and red uniforms that we see them wear, they're very akin to the quantum realm suits that Hank Pym wears in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Mm-hmm. So I think that's their key point in going there.
Yeah, I think just kind of piggyback off what Josh is saying, the last time we saw the quantum realm is the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, when Scott's essentially trapped in there as everyone's Thanos'd away. Mm-hmm. So I think one of the big things we're going to get here probably early on, at least I hope, is what does that look like? How does Scott himself figure out, why isn't anyone pulling me out of here? Mm-hmm. What do I have to do? I think, and I don't know, we might be getting into this later, but I think we'll see Scott himself have his own mini journey through time, trying to figure out where am I, when am I, to pull a early 90s reference. I think it'll be Quantum Leap. When's his last leap home?
What are the odds though that all of the dudes that were helping him just disappear? There were 3 people there with him, right? When at the end of his movie, I know it's a 50% chance, but it's just crazy that happens. So there's a theory of I don't know if you guys seen it. There's a theory online that the Scott Lang that you see in the trailer and everything, he's actually going to be a Skrull, and the actual Scott Lang never escapes the quantum realm. What do you guys think about that theory?
I think it's interesting, but I don't think that to be true. In the sense that Scott has gone to the quantum realm before, and he's gotten himself out of it. And to me, at least, I don't think that there's a way that they planned the quantum realm travel without there being a safety net or a way to come back. In the off chance that there is some situation where they're not able to pull the person back from the other side. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's part of his journey in the quantum realm, is we see him figuring out how he gets himself out of it. But I don't know if I believe that he's the Skrull. I think someone is a Skrull, I just don't know if it's him.
Well, but I also think, too, if we even just look back at Ant-Man and the Wasp, it is possible to get yourself trapped in there.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I actually really like this idea, because I'm a huge fan of Secret Invasion. And I know just recently the Russos have been really talking about, if there's one last movie we'd want to do, then it would be Secret Invasion. I think using Scott as that catalyst. We introduced Skrulls in Captain Marvel, really changed kind of how Skrulls are viewed as far as how they're typically presented in the comics versus what we got in Captain Marvel. So I think that could be a little bit of classic Marvel misdirection.
Right.
You feel bad for these folks, but there's also, within that faction going to be people who do want to take over.
Right.
And so I think it would be a good catalyst for a Secret Invasions kind of storyline. Finding out that maybe we even find out that the Scott Lang we've known this whole time has been a Skrull and not just one that pops up. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of different ways you can splinter off of what the next 5-10 years of Marvel movies look like.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of like 5-10 years of Marvel movies, what, like, if you watch all the trailers and special looks and, you know, all the clips they release, you see that there is some type of time change, because you see, doesn't Black Widow change her hair several times?
Yeah.
So what time span do you guys think we're looking at for this movie? You know, how long will it take them? Will that affect like anything regarding Thanos' recovery and his ability to fight? What do you guys think?
In terms of like how the plot's going, in my opinion, from what I've seen, I think, you know, they're fresh off getting whooped by Thanos, and that's never happened to them before. But I still think that fire is really bright, and so, you know, Captain Marvel's going to get introduced, and they're going to have this new teammate who, to them, seems like they're ace in the hole that could possibly be Thanos. I think very early on they're going to go try to attack Thanos, but because of that, they're going to get whooped again. And I think that's going to be the thing that kind of puts them down and puts them on that lull for a time span. I'm thinking at least a couple of months is going to pass in between this movie, but also, again, the different hairstyles could be Marvel misdirection.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, all of the clips they put could have been just fake, and they're just playing us, you know? You never know. But, I mean, who knows, really? Steve, what are your thoughts on time span?
I think with time span, I think we're actually looking at a much longer time period. You know, with one of the more recent trailers, you've got Black Widow saying, you know, sometimes to move forward, we have to just be willing to start over. You know, and while Black Widow was someone who was trained very much in a, you know, cutthroat manner, I think we've seen enough progression with her over time to realize that she is someone who really does want to start building relationships in some regards. You know, we've seen her have those interactions with Bruce, and we've seen how she connects with Hawkeye at different times. And I think honestly we're looking at a span of a couple of years here. I think you're looking at in the first trailer you've got that kind of that group session where you're walking in and you see the empty chairs and stuff. So I think we're getting to a point where people are finally trying to process seeing all these people, their loved ones, just Thanos away, as they like to say now. And so I think we're actually looking at a much longer time frame, and I think that's going to play into some almost morality choices that we're going to have to see some of these characters make later on that we've grown really close to over these 10 years.
Yeah, I definitely think there's going to be a lot of character development, especially if it goes over a few years. You're going to see it. And speaking of, I do agree that it's going to be like a little longer time span. It's not going to be like a quick, like 2 weeks. They're going to do one giant mission, and they're going to either win or lose, and that's going to be it. I think they're going to take several stabs at Thanos. They're going to come up with different strategies, and they're going to try them, and they're going to fail, and then I think at the end they're going to succeed doing something. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be like one giant, let's go back in time, and then like they figure that out from the get-go. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a 3-hour movie. It'd be 10 minutes, roll the credits. But what are you guys' thoughts? How do you guys think they're gonna, predictions kind of how they're gonna defeat Thanos? Like what types, knowing what we know from the trailers and the clips, what kind of missions are they gonna try to do? I know we kind of discussed earlier about time travel, but is there anything involving the stones that you guys think of? Just basically, how are they gonna reverse the snap?
You know, in my mind, the obvious choice is that they're going to gather the stones somehow in some way, whether it be a completely different set of Infinity Stones through time travel, or they take them from Thanos and use the Infinity Gauntlet. But one theory that I've read on that I really liked and really entertained was using the original intention for stopping those intergalactic threats. By using time travel, they actually go back and get Ultron. And they bring Ultron to the present to fight Thanos with Ultron's robotic army. And one of the reasons I really like that is because it reintroduces Ultron into the universe. Because the end of Age of Ultron, he's basically completely blocked out of everything, like he can't come back. I think it's a great way to be able to reuse that character, even in future movies, and to keep him alive. I know there was an Avengers cartoon a couple years back where when they were fighting Thanos, Ultron is actually the one that stops him from using the Infinity Gauntlet. That's the most entertaining one in my mind. Also in the back of my mind, it's the least likely of them all.
Yeah.
I just don't know how you could keep that under wraps. But the most obvious one, I think, is, they're just going to get the Infinity Gauntlet. There's going to be a sacrifice required of them in order to bring back their fallen friends. And that's going to be the big emotional point of the film, I think, for us.
Well, do you think they're actually going to get back the gauntlet from Thanos? Because it's broken. So is it still usable? Or do they go back to the Star to get a new one?
I think it has to be still usable, just in the sense of there was a clip that was just released where there's this hologram of wherever Thanos is currently located, and Black Widow says he used the stones again. So unless he's able to do it without the use of the gauntlet, I think that it's still possible that the gauntlet is still functioning. I just don't think it can use its full power.
Yeah, I mean, well, during Infinity War, he does use like individual stones as he gets them, but he does use the gauntlet. So can you use stones without having the gauntlet, like individual stones? Obviously, I believe there's no way you can use all the stones without the gauntlet or something to host them. But
right.
Can you use like individual stones? To use it like the Mind Stone Vision had that, and the Time Stone Doctor Strange had the
Eye of Agamotto.
The Eye of Agamotto, yeah. So I don't know. Will they be able to use them? Or?
Well, and Loki used the Tesseract with his scepter.
So there's always some type of tool involved. So is Thanos able to use them without the gauntlet, or is the gauntlet fully broken?
I think obviously, if you've seen Captain Marvel, we're just going to use Goose. It'll be just like he'll have the cat, he'll just shoot Tesseract powers. Really just change the entire atmosphere of the movie.
That'd be really fun. That's something. Do you actually think the cat will have that role? And I mean, the cat obviously doesn't have the Tesseract inside of it anymore, but will it play a role? Did it like absorb some of the powers of that stone?
What happened to the cat?
I was mostly just making a joke, but now you've actually got me really thinking about this.
Right.
I mean, at the end, even when we're in spoiler alerts for the maybe 2 people on the planet who haven't seen Captain Marvel yet, but at the end you've got Goose, and he just coughs up the Tesseract on Fury's desk, which I'm guessing that's how they get it in the first place.
Yeah, because S.H.I.E.L.D. has it for some time, and then I believe, is it Loki that steals it, and then he tries to use it, or the Asgardians have it for some time in their vault. It's a really weird timeline, but yeah, it is interesting how that could play into effect, and just things in the past. I do think, though, that they will go back in the past, like Todd has said.
Yeah.
In some way, they'll go back to the past. I think it'd be really cool if they took like scenes from old movies and they like changed stuff back in the past, like again going back and doing something with Ultron, or like going back to the original Iron Man.
Well, and there have been those set photos where it looks like they're at the Battle of New York from Avengers, the first one. So
and Ant-Man is in the shot talking with them, and they all have which has been a big point of speculation, they're all wearing these weird wrist devices. Actually, they're all like on the palm of their hands, and they think that's the time travel key for the quantum realm, is whatever those devices are. But I do agree, that's the biggest proof, I think, that there is going to be time travel. They're going to go back to some classic scenes. I really hope that's the case, because I think that'd just be really fun to incorporate some of these characters who were never there, or maybe even view these multiple realities, that maybe it's not time travel, maybe they're going to different realities. And this is a reality where Ant-Man was a part of the Avengers at this point in time for the Battle of New York.
Well, and I've always liked the idea of the butterfly effect that some of these changes can have. Like, we've talked a little bit about Ultron. What happens if, they don't end up destroying Sokovia? Then there's not the Accords. Maybe you don't necessarily have
Civil War.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have the stuff going on with Winter Soldier there, or Civil War in that matter too. So how those changes, maybe then do we get Quicksilver, who maybe it's his speed mixed with the attack of Stormbreaker that's able to maybe stop the snap. All sorts of different scenarios that I think could happen.
I really want to see Quicksilver back too. One of my favorite characters.
Not the terrible Fox version.
Would he be able to even wield the Stormbreaker though?
Well, I'm not saying that he'd be the one to wield it.
Oh, okay.
I think you can combine their powers. I mean, that's the thing is the Avengers always operate better as a team. And a lot of that is because each of them has their own specialty. And so maybe it was not having the speed of a Quicksilver that, really maybe created that hindrance to being able to stop Thanos. I mean, we have that classic line from Strange in Infinity War that says, I've seen 14 million different scenarios, and there's only one that works. He then follows that up with, we're in the end game. So whatever that one scenario is,
it's set in motion.
Is what needs to be in place. Yeah. And I think we're going to find out that sometimes to win, you have to lose.
That's true. That's a good point, really. Again, I believe that they're going to lose several times during Endgame.
Oh, yeah.
Just throughout the movie. And then I think at the end they'll end up winning, but I'm not sure how they'll do it. What's your guys' best theories kind of on how they'll be able to succeed and beat Thanos? That's a tough question because there's a lot of ways that they can do it. So,
well, and my thing is, do they win by beating Thanos, or is there another option? Because in the comics, Thanos realizes this was not right, and Thanos himself reverses the snap. So I think I think it'd be possible, and I think it'd be really cool. Just from the, you always have the classic movie trope where the heroes win at the end, and obviously Infinity War was the one that went against the grain because we didn't win. I think it'd be really cool to watch it again where we don't win. There's not a certain victory where we overcome the evil, but the evil maybe realizes what they did was wrong and they reverse it.
The question is there going to be a bigger problem than Thanos? Will the Avengers have to team up with Thanos to defeat some other bigger threat that appears? What do you guys think?
I mean, this probably won't happen, but in my heart of hearts, all I want is Galactus to show up. And I know that Fox merger just got done, but I mean, they also just said 2 days ago they finally finished work on Endgame. So I mean, if we just see Cloud, it was a terrible movie, but just the second Fantastic Four, which also had Chris Evans in it. If we could even just see an outline of Galactus, I think in the background showing this threat coming, it's probably more of an end credits scene. But I think where we're heading is probably something bigger than where we're at.
I love the idea of Galactus, but I want that to be its own film. Whether that be the next 10 years, that's what it builds up to. Because that's how it's always been for the past 10 years. We've been leading up to Thanos, and now we're looking at the future. And before the Fox merger, it was probably where do we go? Yeah. But I think maybe that is more reserved for its own film. I just don't. I don't think it'll be a bigger threat than Thanos. I think Thanos is the main threat.
I think
but also just looking at how Marvel does their things, it also makes you feel there's something though. There's got to be something.
On a more realistic basis, I think if you have a secondary threat, I think you're looking probably at more of an Annihilation type character, where it's not maybe someone who's necessarily super well known, where you'd give them their own movie, but it's someone who would still present a threat and has in the past that would, be something they could kind of piggyback off of if the 3-hour film isn't just we have to stop Thanos.
I think that'd be an interesting twist, especially if they teamed up with Thanos. If the extra threat teamed up with Thanos, and then that creates, because, I mean, I think just Thor by himself is strong enough to defeat Thanos, especially if Thanos has a broken gauntlet, because at the end of Infinity War, Thanos using all 5 stones to hit Thor. Obviously, he thinks he doesn't have to use as much, but Thor's able to just go through it with Stormbringer. And so I do think that the Avengers that are still alive have the power to defeat Thanos. So I think if Thanos teamed up with a different character that shows up, even if it's smaller, that'll make him even more powerful, and he'll still be able to beat them. Another question we have here is, we see in the trailer that Hawkeye, he comes back, he's in some type of town, some city, and he's wielding a sword, which is what the alternate character to Hawkeye is as Ronin. He kind of comes in. So is Hawkeye going to turn into Ronin, and what do you guys think is going to prompt that to happen?
I'm fairly confident that it's going to be Hawkeye's family is getting dusted, and that's what's going to cause that turn. Just because we see that opening shot in one of the trailers with Hawkeye showing his daughter how to shoot the bow and arrow, and he's training with her. And we know through the movies that Hawkeye loves nothing more than his family. Like, that is his main thing. He's super skeptical about bringing them there during Age of Ultron because he doesn't want to put them at risk for anything. And I think that's the thing that ultimately snaps him, is him losing his family, and that's what causes the Ronin identity.
I think also gives him a reason to set the bow down and switch over to that more sword-based combat.
And get his sketchy haircut.
Yeah, that's sweet Mohawk.
I mean,
Mohawk guy.
Mohawk guy? That would be, why don't they just name him that? Why Ronin, Gosh, we gotta go back with the comics. Todd, you talked earlier before the show about a potential Stan Lee cameo. What do you want to expand on that more?
Yeah. So my idea is that all the popular theory is that all the souls of everybody that was dusted is trapped inside the Soul Stone, which in Infinity War it came at a cost. He had to sacrifice the thing that he loved most in order to get the Infinity Stone. So that's how Gamora dies. I believe that in order to get back all those people who died, there's going to be an equal cost, in that it's not just going to be the simple fix like everybody's back. There's going to be a cost for it. I thought it would just be a beautiful thing across the board, is that, and this is how we lose some of our beloved characters, is some of them will ultimately have to make that sacrifice. And when they go to make that sacrifice, they are informed that they still do not have enough to make that sacrifice, and this would be Stan Lee's cameo, where he would walk up and he would offer to sacrifice himself with them. Which
I'm getting choked up too.
Right, yeah. Which, like, everybody's thing is like, oh, well, yeah, like, okay, because Stan Lee is Stan Lee, and, like, that's why it's powerful enough. But no, I think it's really cool because Stan Lee as a character there would represent that he is just this everyday guy who, he doesn't have super strength or this immense body of armor or superpowers at all. But his soul is just as worthy as the other heroes to sacrifice to make that cost equal to all those. So that's my theory, at least.
Okay, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, it does fit into this theme that they do show that normal people can have powers as well. I mean, obviously, like, none of the Avengers really are normal people,
right?
But it's kind of an underlying theme I've seen kind of in the movies. We see like human traits of the Avengers in their individual movies and in the group movies as well. So that's what I think about Stan Lee's cameo.
Yeah, I think it's really there's a lot that goes into that, because I think if you watch and you put all the cameos together over time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've had Stan Lee not just in the MCU, but he's also been in all of those Fox movies.
Mm-hmm.
And come back to Captain Marvel because it's the most recent one. In all of that, if we're going to believe in continuity, which I don't think Kevin Feige or the rest of the MCU would throw to the wayside, Captain Marvel proves that is just Stan Lee. Because he's reading the Mallrats script, which was his cameo for a movie. And we have I'm forgetting which movie it is now, but a couple of films back where he's speaking with the Watchers about all the things that he's seen on Earth. And, you know, with Kevin Feige saying that Endgame was the last cameo that Stan Lee filmed, I don't know if we are looking at just a regular person. If we're looking at this within continuity, within the broader MCU, I mean, I'll cry for hours if Stan Lee himself is the ultimate sacrifice, because it'll just be a beautiful ending to everything that he's done. But I don't know. I think if that's the way you're going to do it, I think that would have been, again, not really knowing ahead of time what was going to be the outcome. That could be a really cool arc for that character. But I don't know. Part of me doesn't want to watch Stan Lee die again. So
yeah. Let's finish up. Let's talk about the death pool. Who do you guys think is going to die? Who do you think is going to be alive at the end? This is a tough question, I know.
So I think we have 11 alive right now in the superhero pool. I think Hulk's going to bite it, or Bruce Banner's going to bite it. And my reasoning behind that is purely from somewhat of a business standpoint, is that if you look at it, they can't make the Hulk solo films. They don't have the rights because of Universal, so they can only utilize him for team-up movies. And team-up movies naturally have bigger budgets than the solo films. But because of that, I mean, Hulk eats up so much of an animation budget. I think from a business standpoint and a story standpoint, because the Hulk's kind of almost always been this, not a cop-out, but almost a deus ex machina. And obviously in Infinity War he wasn't. But I think they're going to try to stray away from that, and killing him would be one way to do that. Captain America, mostly just because Chris Evans his contract is up, and I know he came out and said he's like, well, just because our contract's up doesn't mean I'm done playing the character, but business world, probably you're done playing the character. Black Widow, I think they're going to kill her, because her movie is a prequel, so you can kill the character and still use the character in your films that you're trying to use her for. And I hate to say it, but I really think Iron Man's going to bite it. I think it's a beautiful end to his story, and I think this is the right end to the story for Iron Man at this point, for this big final battle.
I think Captain America will die. I think Iron Man's gonna die. Who else? I think Thor. I don't know. For me, Thor is one of the most powerful Avengers. There's been Captain Marvel, maybe similar to him. I'm not sure. I haven't seen them side by side, but I think he'll die just for the sake of the movie, I guess. I'm not sure I think, again, I agree with you. I think Black Widow will die, but I'm not sure about anyone else, because I know they'll want to keep movies going, and I don't know but I mean, they did throw the twist that everyone died in Infinity War, so it might be a twist that we're gonna say, nope, you're never gonna see this character again, type thing. So I'm really not sure, but those would be my predictions that I think would die.
I think when all's said and done, I think what could happen is we talked a little bit about this, is if we have these different scenarios where maybe we're retrying things, I think you could see different scenarios happen. Like, they try this plan, Thor dies, they reverse time, head back, okay, cool, Thor's back. I think the end of the day, I think we have one permanent death, and I think it's gonna be Cap.
Mm-hmm.
I think ultimately Cap makes the ultimate sacrifice. That is the end game.
Mm-hmm.
We get kind of the swan song to him. Maybe part of it is, then he gets to be with Peggy finally. I think Tony's going to go on and be kind of the overall kind of head of the Avengers. I think I think what we'll see is him kind of backing away from the Iron Man persona and really taking on more of a leadership quality.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we'll see is him really embrace the leadership that Chris Evans has brought through Captain America, and realizing, because I think that's the end of Tony's arc, is putting aside kind of that selfishness to him and, being more focused towards his relationship with Pepper, realizing that there's more than just what he wants out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of this is going to come down to something I mentioned earlier, is if you reverse things, then what happens to the present?
Mm-hmm.
If we're looking at this from maybe just a hypothetical 5-year period, mentioned Widow saying, sometimes to move forward we have to start over.
Mm-hmm.
I think ultimately the biggest cost is going to be those lives that have started or restarted in that period.
Mm-hmm.
That moral choice is going to be, what sacrifice do you make? Do you bring back all of these people at the cost of these lives that have begun?
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately what does that end up looking like? And what kind of morality choice, does that create within people? If Hawkeye loved his family,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and if they're gone, to bring them back, is it going to sacrifice someone else's family they've created in this time?
Mm-hmm.
And so what that looks like on a personal level for each of them, I think, is something we're going to deal with as well. I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, it's a 3-hour movie." I don't know how you could wrap up 23 movies in a 2-hour movie.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I have no problem with a 3-hour movie.
Same.
People sat through 3.5 hours for Lord of the Rings, and that was just a lot of walking.
I'll watch 6-hour Endgame.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
12 hour?
12 hours?
Done.
Fine. Let's go. 24 hours, no breaks, straight through. So yeah, this has been the 4-Bit Show. If you have any comments about Endgame, leave them down below. It releases in theaters April 26th. You better make sure you get your tickets because it probably will sell out opening night.
See, most markets are already pre-sold through the weekend.
Yeah. And it's making a lot of money, so make sure you get there ahead of the game. We'll catch you guys next time.